Oh, we were doing the class?
This afternoon's or this morning's presentation, I've lost track of time already, is on .com. And a lot of you are familiar with .com and sort of the parameters of the program. But for those of you who aren't, .com is an experiment. It's a pilot project from the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs to get young people from Azerbaijan, Armenia, and the United States talking about social media and how social media can impact positive change and create positive change. That's ostensibly, that's on the surface. The real meat of it, of .com, sort of the below the surface stuff, is getting people from two very different cultures, very different sides of a border to talk and start to develop relationships between Armenians and Azerbaijanis. So we had two goals, essentially. One, to get students educated and online and using social media tools, and two, to get them talking about substantive cross-cultural issues. This is our jury. These are both our participants in the program and also our jury, to determine whether or not it worked. They've been at this for about a year and a half. They all have blogs. They're all using Facebook. Some are using Twitter. They've been able to reach out to their peers and talk about the project. But again, they're the best jury in terms of whether or not it was successful and what was really accomplished. So we're going to throw this. I have told them that this is going to be an opportunity for them to really honestly discuss the successes and the failures of the project. Because as a pilot project, the hope is that others will look to it as ways to, or as a model to implement similar initiatives. So, these are our .comers. We have students from Vermont, from Boston, from near Washington, D.C., Florida, Los Angeles. These are just the top 9. We actually had 21 additional students spread throughout the U.S. But these are the top students. And we're going to start the conversation. Wow, you already have something to say. Okay, go for it. And hopefully this will just be an open dialogue on that kind of stuff. So let's go for it.
My name is Tessa Armenia. I'm from Los Angeles. I think it's best to start with explaining a little bit about last summer and meeting together in Vermont for a month and interacting together and making films together. And I'm going to just speak from the American perspective because last summer I did a really good job at assuming things about other people and being completely ignorant. And so last summer, just off the plane, I personally realized a lot of divides among Armenian and Azerbaijani students. And as the month progressed, it got worse. We couldn't take pictures of an Azerbaijani and Armenian in the same frame. I was supposed to make a film about the conflict, or conflict in general, and we were disallowed from doing that. And I think that the biggest lesson that I could have learned from .com is that never to go into a situation assuming that you know something, especially when you grow up, when I've grown up in a relatively privileged society in America where conflict is on the other side of a newspaper and on the other side of a TV screen and it's never in front of you. I mean, if you weren't connected with the news in America, you would never know we were in a war. And I think that in trying to understand whether .com was successful or not, it's not a question of success or failure, it's a question of do we understand our personal biases now, and do we understand our personal stereotypes that we had. And I think at least for the Americans, for me, it's for understanding a huge blanket of ignorance that was surrounding us, and coming back here and meeting with the students in Baku and Yerevan and now in Tbilisi when we're all together has been one of the most transforming experiences ever. I loved Baku, I loved Yerevan, I loved being with all the students there. I can't even compare the two cities because it was such an amazing experience in both of them. And I think that students have really been able to see the other side, and it's been transformative.
That the American students have been able to see the other sides, or that the Armenians and Azerbaijanis have been able to see?
I just want to touch on kind of what Tessa said.
Who are you?
I'm Danielle. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Hurrah. And basically, kind of thinking about what Tessa said about the summer and comparing it to now is, during the summer we worked in groups of 3. So it was an American, an Armenian, and an Azerbaijani working on these films. And when I started out with the group, it was there wasn't any actual human interaction and conversation between the Armenian kid in my group and the Azerbaijani kid in my group, because I think there was a lot of fear at the unknown of the other side. The thing is, coming here now, you realize how much the cultures have in common, and I think after talking, they see a lot of similarities, but I think beforehand, there was a lot of anticipation and not really knowing exactly what it was like to be working with a person from, the other side. And so when I first got there, I kind of was I was a little bit worried because the kids in my group weren't talking to each other. They would actually use me as the means to communicate with one another. So the Azerbaijani boy would say an idea to me, and I'd be talking to the Armenian girl, and she was wonderful, and she responded to me, and I responded to him back what she said. So I kind of relayed the messages. But it was a little frustrating at first because I didn't feel like it was a group. And as the weeks went on, we worked for 2 weeks on a media project, and it kind of pulled us together working on this one, we were trying to make one concrete thing together. And towards the last week, it was really cool because the 2 kids in my group actually started talking. And it was really cool because they actually opened up to each other and talked about their countries, and they talked about some similarities between their countries, some differences between their countries. The girls showed the boy in my group some films on YouTube about Armenian history, and they just had discussions, and they felt free to talk like that in the presence of each other. And that was something that I wasn't sure was going to happen, just considering how it started at first. And actually, over the past 8 months since we've seen each other in the summer, the kids that were in my group still have communicated using Web 2.0 technologies like Facebook. And they've kept in touch, and they weren't afraid to do that. And it was weird because when I went to Azerbaijan, the boy in the group was like, I miss, the girl in the group. And then when I went to Armenia, she was like, I miss the guy from Azerbaijan. So the friendships were actually made, and they can communicate. I know it's a start, and I know it's one case study kind of situation, but they're using those technologies to keep the relationship going. And it makes me really hopeful because it's a hard situation. I know that they're coming from 2 different sides, and 2 sides that have a long history going back. And it's not the easiest history. It's kind of bumpy, but I was really impressed to see, and I felt really proud of my group in that one case. It's kind of beautiful that they're still interacting and hanging out.
So Elizabeth introduced this program to you by saying that these are kids from 2 very different places.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm David Saxon. I'm from Boston. But after being here and after meeting them, after spending so much time with kids from both these countries, and just trying to immerse myself in their culture, I can honestly sit here and tell you that there are very little differences. Even their perspective of the conflict, even the way that they feel, oppressed and victimized, even the way their government treats them in their own countries is almost identical. There are very minute differences between these 2 groups of kids. Everyone in this program was incredibly intelligent, spoke multiple languages. That's just, one example. They had Russian in common because a lot of, them spoke Russian from the legacy of the Soviet Union being in their countries. And, they obviously spoke their own languages, but the food was similar, very similar. And I love food, so I was really, just trying to figure this out. But the food was, almost identical, and the music was almost identical. And I was listening to some of the music from both the countries, and I heard the music, and